Early leans for college football week 5 and NFL week 4 are back as the BetSided team is all together again, going through some of our favorites for the week. Ben Heisler, Ian McMillan, Donovan Smoot, Peter Dewey, and Reed Wallach all here with me. And again, if you're enjoying the content that you see here on YouTube, make sure you guys are subscribing, give us a thumbs up on the video as well, and check out all the different videos that we're posting. It's either on Twitter at BetSided, on Instagram, on TikTok. You can just find us there by going to @BetSided as well. And be sure to check out all the different content that we have for you guys for college, for NFL, for NBA. Training camp has already begun. You can check that out by going to fansided.com/BetSided. All right, so it is time for our favorite plays of the week. On the earlier side, we're going to take some of our early leans and go through it as a team one by one. Starting with the NFL. It was an okay week for us last week, but we're still at 8-6 against the spread after a 2-3 week last week. So the winning begins with our Iron Man, Ian McMillan, who has been outstanding over the course of his early start to the year in NFL picks against the spread. So, Ian, I implore you, get us off on the right foot. You have the Giants at +7.5 going to New Orleans this week with a total of 43.5. Who do you like here?
Yeah, back in the underdog. I'm taking the Giants in this one with the points. Listen, I was one of the biggest Saints supporters as far as a betting standpoint through the first 3 weeks. I think I was on them in all first 3 weeks of the season, going against them this week because everyone has made fun of how bad the Giants offense is this season, and rightfully so to some extent. They're 17th in yards per play at 5.6. But do you want to know where the Saints rank in that stat? 29th. They're only averaging 4.3 yards per play. That's 1.3 yards less than the Giants. I think this is a buy low, sell high spot. Give me the Giants getting 7.5 points in New Orleans this weekend.
You also had a chance to go and see the Giants live with your Atlanta Falcons getting an outright win against them over at MetLife Stadium. By the way, did you know that Daniel Jones, third in the NFL in quarterback rushing behind some guys named Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia? Pretty impressive for at least Daniel Jones through the ground. Donovan, let me go to you next. We have a matchup with two teams getting big wins over in week 3. Cleveland goes on the road. They are -2 at Minnesota against the Vikings. Total in that game, it's been creeping up throughout the early portion of the week. It is now at 53 at WinBet. Who do you like between the Browns and the Vikings?
I love Cleveland this week. I'm all on Cleveland. I think if you can get the Browns -2 inside of a field goal, it's great. I think if the Browns were going to get caught, they were going to get caught last week against the Chicago Bears with Justin Fields making his first start. They haven't looked that impressive in the last 2 games against Houston and against Chicago. So again, I think if you were waiting for them to get upset, it was going to happen then. They're going to go on the road to Minnesota. They need wins since Baltimore is 2-1. The Bengals are surprisingly 2-1, and they have to keep pace with everybody in the division. I like what I saw from Odell last week. He looks back. It's going to be very, very good for the Browns without Jarvis Landry. The Vikings give up about 120 yards on the ground every week. The Browns average 174. I know that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to show up. I love Cleveland this week. Give me the Browns.
All right, so Browns -2 so far as we continue on. Peter, let me go to you next. We got an intriguing, well, it was initially intriguing for one of the late afternoon games. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road after 2 consecutive home losses. Thanks so much for that, as my survivor pick is now gone. They are 6.5-point dogs. This line's actually moved up from 3.5 all the way up to 6.5 over at WinBet. Packers 6.5-point favorites. Total in this game only 45.5. Peter, what do you do with this one? Are you going to go with a heavy public team likely in Green Bay at home, or are you going to maybe mix it up with the Steelers to get back on track?
Yeah, Ben, I'm going to stick with the Packers in this one off of their impressive ended up being come from behind win against the 49ers last week. The way I look at this, Ian mentioned yards per play with the Saints and the Giants. You look at the Steelers, they're averaging just 4.9 yards per play. That's the 7th worst mark in the NFL. Ben Roethlisberger is not good anymore. Like, I don't want to be all Trent Dilfer or anything, but he is not good anymore. They were absolutely terrible against the Bengals last week. He was checking down to Najee Harris for 19 targets. They're not going to be able to keep up with this Packers offense. Joe Burrow ended up lighting up the defense without TJ Watt. So if he's unable to go, Aaron Rodgers is going to pick them apart. And on top of that, since Matt LaFleur took over as the Packers head coach, they have the second best against the spread record as a home favorite in the NFL. They're 13-7 since 2019. Give me the Packers. They look back. I can't believe people thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be on a down slope this year. All day, Packers.
Yeah, we've already seen this line move up a ton. It wouldn't surprise me if it possibly even gets all the way up to 7. Don't know if it'll get to 7.5 over at WinBet. You might see a little bit more action on the other side, but certainly for the Steelers. And we wrote about this over at BetSided this week that Ben Roethlisberger right now, according to Pro Football Focus, his passes on target, they're right around a 43% clip. That's down from about 73% last year. So right now things are looking very bleak for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and especially for Big Ben. The literal time and the literal clock might be ticking. I think I screwed up the bit, but we continue on. Reed, I'm going to go over to you next. We have a very intriguing matchup. Good AFC battle as the Baltimore Ravens, who by just the skin on their fingernails, they're hanging on for dear life 2-1, got a 66-yard field goal by Justin Tucker to beat the Detroit Lions on the road. They go back to the road in a hostile environment, taking on Denver as 1.5-point underdogs with a total of just 44.5 points in this game. Teddy Bridgewater continues to cover. Is he going to do it again this week?
I don't think so. And Ian made a good point about buying low and selling high on teams. And Baltimore, yes, they eked out that win against Detroit, but that was not without Hollywood Brown dropping several big catches. Justin Tucker obviously had to bail him out, but Baltimore outgained Detroit by more than 100 yards that entire game. So I think Baltimore is actually on the upswing here. Lamar's starting to look a little bit more acclimated with his new weapons. We all know about the 3 preseason injuries to the running backs, but this is a Baltimore team that's starting to gel a little bit. And Denver, their combined opponents records are 0-9 through the first 3 weeks. I know they look dominant, but should they really be favored over Baltimore here? I project Baltimore as a small favorite, so I'll take the 1.5, and I like them a lot as a teaser leg also to get them through 7.
I think you're starting to read my mind a little bit, because that's actually the direction that I am going with for my best bet in the NFL. I'm going to take 2 small underdogs and tease them up. So you got the Seattle Seahawks going on the road to San Francisco. The Seahawks were 2.5-point underdogs in that game. Mix it up. You can move that line from 2.5 to plus 8.5. And then I'm also going to take Baltimore at plus 1.5 over at WinBet and move them all the way up to plus 7.5. So you can go through that magic number of 3 and 7. Reed, I'm with you. I think Baltimore is still a team that is very dangerous despite not living up to their max amount of potential throughout the first 3 games of the season. And if Hollywood Brown catches a touchdown in that game, we're talking about them getting very close or right around covering that number against the Detroit Lions, because sharp money actually moved the money back towards the Detroit side. I think they'll hang in with Denver. I think they also have a good opportunity to get the win. I like them at plus 1.5. I love them at plus 7.5. Let's go back to the college side. Another 2 and 3 week for us on college bets. Not as good as we've been so far on the NFL side. We've been 8-6 against the spread in the NFL. College so far just 8-11-1. But again, there's always an opportunity for a turnaround here from all of us at BetSided, especially if you've been tailing our own Peter Dewey's straight up college football upsets. He was with the public and had Notre Dame and got a nice little laugh at all of our expenses. So we'll get to his in a second, but Ian, I'm going to go back to you. You're going to go back to the Wisconsin bin. The Badgers let a lot of us down last week. They were the sharp play and ultimately did not come through. But here they are, -1 against Michigan, coming into that game with a total of 43.5.
Yeah, back on the Badgers this week. If they can cover for me, I'll forgive them for what they did against Notre Dame last week, because that was ugly. But when you're looking at this game against Michigan, your immediate thought based on what these 2 teams have done so far this season is Michigan would be an obvious bet. But I'm here to tell you that is not the case, because 73.71% of Michigan's plays this season have been running plays. That's the 4th highest rate in the country. And then 63.94% of their yards gained on offense have come on the ground. That's the 5th highest rate in the country. Well, what school has the #1 rush defense? That is the Wisconsin Badgers. Teams are only getting 1 yard per carry against the Badgers. That's it. 1.0 yards per carry against the Badgers. Michigan's not going to be able to move the ball. They're going to get stuffed at the line almost every time they try to, and they try to a lot. Like I said, 4th highest rush rate in the country. Wisconsin's going to be able to shut down this offense and then go on to win the game. So I'm back on the Badgers -1 this weekend.
All right, we'll see whether or not Wisconsin can deliver after a couple pretty crushing losses for anybody that was backing them. They were so close, and then the game just eventually got away from them. Donovan, you're sticking in the Big Ten. We got a pretty, very intriguing matchup between number 5 Iowa. They're 4-point favorites going on the road against the Maryland Terrapins this week, total of 48. Who do you like here?
Look, I picked against Iowa 2 weeks ago, I think, against Iowa State. They made me look real stupid. And so I'm not making that mistake again. I'm going to pick Iowa. Like the -4. Iowa's 3-1 against the spread this year. And look, I really, really like them in this game. They have a great defense. They have a great rushing attack. And Maryland, listen, Maryland's 2 games against Power 5 schools this season. They've only won by 1 possession. Iowa's won every single game by at least double digits. They're showing that they're dominant. They can get it done on the ground. They average over 150 yards on the ground. This is going to be once again a ground and pound type of game, and Iowa's gonna pull it out.
Yeah, if it's ground and pound, it's absolutely going to favor Iowa because Maryland likes to take a lot of shots downfield. It was part of what led them to an upset win in week 1. So we'll see whether or not Iowa is able to continue on the trend that they're on. They're still only plus 8,000 to win the national championship, despite being the number 5 team in the country over at WinBet. Peter, let me go to you. You're got your eye on the big SEC matchup of the weekend with number 1 Alabama and Ole Miss, a battle of 2 Heisman candidates, the top 2 frontrunners in Bryce Young and Matt Corral that you can find over at WinBet as well. Bama 14.5-point favorites in this one with the over/under of, yes, you heard it correctly, 79 points. What do you do here?
Yeah, so Ben, I'm super excited for this game just purely for the Bryce Young, Matt Corral matchup. But this total is just way too high for my liking, and I understand why it's that high. Ole Miss is the highest scoring team in the country. They average 52 points a game, and Alabama's 3rd. They average 46 points a game. It makes sense in theory, but if you look at these 2 teams defensively, Ole Miss is allowing just 22.5 points per game, and Alabama is giving up just 18.7. They're both not just going to throw all over each other and score a ton of points. I think if you look at where 79, you're looking at either both teams are going to be near that number of 40. I just don't see that happening. And since 2003, any spread that is closed at 79 points, the under is 6-3 in those 9 games. Even if this goes up to 79.5, I would even more so take the under on this because those games, it's 5-3 to the under. I just don't think both these teams are going to go and have a shootout. Nick Saban prides himself on his defense. Alabama is going to be able to keep this Ole Miss offense a little bit in check compared to the 52 points they're averaging this year. Give me the under.
Under 79. This is the world that we get to live in right now in college football. Should be a lot of fun. And you can still take the under and know that there's still going to be likely plenty of points scored. So I think it's a win for everybody in that regard. Reed, let me go to you. You got an intriguing matchup with number 7 Cincinnati. They're going to Notre Dame. Irish obviously pulled off a huge win last week, but Cincinnati favored on the road in this matchup. They're -2.5 with a total of 50.5. What do you do?
I agree with the spread here. I think Cincinnati should be favored. This is pretty much a college football playoff elimination game, in my opinion, maybe the biggest game in Cincinnati school history. And let's just talk off field really quick. Marcus Freeman, their former defensive coordinator, he has the same role now at Notre Dame. He took that. This is his first year there. Brian Kelly, head coach, he left Cincinnati and went to Notre Dame. So there's a big chip on their shoulder for Cincinnati, kind of almost like a pipeline for the Fighting Irish now. Now you look at the on-field, Jack Cohn, starting quarterback for the Fighting Irish, didn't finish the game. He hurt his ankle, may play, but he's going to be a little banged up in front of a patchwork offensive line. They have not been able to get any push up front, 0 rushing game. And this is Cincinnati offense that limits explosive plays. They're going to put Notre Dame behind picks, make them go downfield. They are top 30 in havoc. They're top 30 in explosive pass defense. So I like Cincinnati to force a few big plays and win this game outright. And I might be angling to take a Cincinnati future here, win the national title. I think that they're on pace right now. With all the chaos breaking out, things are breaking their way to go to the national title. They win here, their odds are going to crash down come Monday.
All right. So for selfish reasons, I'm rooting for Cincinnati in this game, in addition to backing your bet, because as an Indiana fan, you lose to Iowa, you lose to Cincinnati. Potentially, we could be looking at 2 of the top championship contenders in college
Not all
football.
that bad.
Maybe those losses don't look, particularly too bad. I'm going to go with a team that didn't look particularly good last week for an opportunity for a bounce back, and that's Texas A&M. Remember, they entered this year with the 4th lowest odds to win the national championship over at WynnBET, and right now it's not been an ideal start. Barely scraped by in week 2 against Colorado, which got blown out this week. Lost 20-10 going up against Arkansas. They're at home this week against Mississippi State. I haven't been particularly impressed by Mississippi State so far this year, so I think it's an opportunity for Texas A&M to get right. They've had 2 blowout wins so far this year where they have covered the spread. And maybe it's a little bit of a trap by the odds makers to only list it at 7, but I expect this number to move probably to 7.5 or 8 over at WynnBET over the course of the week. So I'd rather take them at 7 now before that line moves and go ahead and get the value there. So there you have it. It is our week 4 NFL early leans, our week 5 in college football leans as well. For plenty more content and analysis and even more, make sure you guys head over to fansided.com/betsided and make sure to subscribe and like this video over on YouTube as well. So for the rest of the BetSided team, I'm Ben. We'll talk to you guys next week. Be good.